Okay, Mila Falcherov and Sean and you, Karja, you're all very welcome here today in our December Governance and Strategic Planning meeting. I'm just going to pass you over now to John, who's going to take you through the notice of summons.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. To all members of the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the committee, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber here in the Guildhall, Tuesday, the 2nd of December at 4 o'clock. Alderman Cook.
Online, John.
Alderman Hussey.
Online, aye.
Alderman Wilkinson. Councillor Sandra Duffy.
No.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
And Shaw, here, Lena, John.
Councillor Jackson.
Sure.
Councillor Leonard.
Sure.
Councillor McDaid.
Apologies.
Councillor McGinley.
Sure.
Councillor Mooney. Councillor Tierney.
Here.
Councillor Nelis.
Sure.
Thank you, members.
Garmagat, John. So just a broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website www.derrystrabane.com. Okay, just moving on to declarations of members' interests. No? Okay. Okay, so we were to have our deputation today to receive Marie McElroy and Grania McMulkin, but unfortunately that has had to be postponed at short notice and it will be rescheduled at a further date. So we're just going to move now into the body of the meeting and we're going to start with chairperson's business. And I have had one chairperson's business through and that's from Christopher Jackson.
Good, Chair, and thanks for allowing this because I know it was a relatively short notice, but I just wanted to raise the recent video that emerged in Newry Morning Down, where masked individuals made a threat against elected representatives, threat towards the community and a threat towards elected representatives. And I know, like all of us that are sitting in this chamber are elected to represent our communities. We put our name forward to serve the people, and any attack on elected representatives, any threat should be called out. And I suppose whilst the threat didn't originate within our own council area, we're all elected representatives and none of us should face any form of intimidation at all. So I just wanted to highlight our disgust that these deluded individuals thought it was appropriate to mask themselves up and threaten democratically elected representatives, regardless of, you can disagree with people's politics, you can disagree with policy, but it doesn't give anybody a right to threaten or intimidate those people. If they've got an alternative vision, they should put themselves forward for election. If they feel that they represent the community and speak for the community, then they should put themselves forward, as all elected representatives in Newry Morning Down. So we just wanted to send our solidarity to the people of Newry Morning Down and all elected representatives who should be free to fulfil their duties without fear of intimidation. Garmagat.
Garmagat, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Jackson for raising this. I have spoken to some of our colleagues in Newry Morningdown from our own party, and whilst they are confident in the decisions that they have made over recent times, there's no doubt that there is a nervousness there, and people are taking this threat incredibly seriously, which is exactly what they should do. I think the images of social media and the post in particular are something from the people would have seen in the 1980s or before it. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Jackson. People have put themselves forward to represent their community with good faith, have received a mandate and are doing their best to try and represent that area. People may disagree with them, that's fine. But I think the moment that you bring a threat into any arena, but particularly a political arena, I think you've lost the argument right away. I think it is right and fitting that we do send our solidarity with elected representatives across the board, but particularly around this case in Newry Morningdown. The people who are behind this threat or these threats to elected representatives, in my view, have nothing better to offer the people of that particular council area. It's not easy being an elected representative, we all know that. And these threats only deter people from putting themselves forward. Good people from putting themselves forward who want to do the best for their area, and they should be allowed to do it free of intimidation or threat. And on behalf of the SDLP, we send our full support to our colleagues right across the board who are elected representatives, but particularly those in Newry Morningdown. Thank you.
Garmaga, Councillor Tierney and Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you to Councillor Jackson for raising this very, very important issue. And I do think it's right that we are putting a spotlight on it today because I, like many other people, watched the short video and was disgusted at it. And there's a number of things to say about it. Obviously, they are trying to intimidate people, and not just elected representatives. They are trying to intimidate people in the Newry and broader area who have stood and defended the sanctuary city that the local council passed there in recent months. There's been great mobilisations in Newry in defence of migrants and asylum seekers, largely organised by trade unions but supported by political parties and campaign groups. And it's those people that these thugs are trying to intimidate. And the things that they said, I mean, these people claim to stand in the tradition of James Connolly. They do not. They have no understanding of what James Connolly stood for, and they should probably go and read what James Connolly stood for. And they claimed their talking points was straight out of Tommy Robinson's manifesto. You know, military-age men being flooded into Ireland is absolute nonsense. I mean, this is what Farage says. This is what the people who have opposed self-determination for Ireland for hundreds of years say, and that's why it's disgraceful. What they also says about you know, young people and their sexual orientation and identity, absolute nonsense as well. Again, right-wing talking points. And I think, look, the vast majority of people in Ireland completely disagree with this, and that was reflected in the election of Catherine Connolly. And I think they have to be sent this message every time they try to do this sort of stuff. So I'm confident that people in Newry and the council district won't be put off by this, but I think it's good that we send our solidarity to them as well. Thank you, Chair.
Garmaga, and online then we have Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And as I say, I thank Councillor Jackson for raising this issue. It has made the news there, and I see that it has been condemned by the various political parties, particularly in that South Down area. I see my own colleague there, Diane Forsyth, has also condemned it on behalf of the Democratic Union's Party. As has been stated, we all put ourselves up for election, and it is that thing. We do have various different opinions, and oftentimes I'll disagree with probably everyone in the chamber. But whenever going to this level here, it's just not on. And I do know there has been that those threats made against particularly a number of the councillors there. It was raised again yesterday at the NAC meeting, and was raised last month at the NAC meeting. And the threats that were made against locally elected representatives in South Down area. So it's very disappointing, because, as I say, it affects. We all stick our head above the parapet, and whether we're successful or whether we're not successful to get elected, you take that leap of faith to go for it, and you're trying to do the best for your community, and to have these threats made against you, it's not nice. As I say, I've had issues myself where I've had to force to contact the PSNI in regards to issues, and it's not a position you want to be in. So we do support, and I do know the NAC is working with members as well there, and the chief executive of Newry Down as well, the PSNI, and it may well be an option or an opportunity, I should say, and hopefully it's not required, but just to get a little look at our own situation in regards to if there are incidents or the policy that we have as our own council in regards to maybe threats that are made against elected representatives within Derry City Band Council, just to get a little look again at the protocol and what we have in place ourselves in regards to working with PSNI and regarding council officers, because I know there's had to be additional security placed at some of the councillors' homes and various other things there and Newry Down. So but no, we just, as I say, it's not a nice thing to happen, and we do condemn it. Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in.
Garmagat and Alderman Hussey.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair, and I just join with colleagues in condemnation of the current situation. It's regressive. It reminds me of life in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and like Councillor Kerrigan, I found myself in the situation of police coming to you and telling you there's threats here and threats there and all of that sort of thing. Totally unacceptable. As others have said, those who put their heads above the parapet and seek election, that's how you voice and deal with your concerns as they go forward. Councillor Turner referred there to contact with his colleagues in that area, and indeed, as Councillor Kerrigan has referred to there, this threat has emerged recently, but I know of a colleague of Councillor Turner's who has endured threat for some time. Councillor Wright, as Councillor Turner will know there, and extend best wishes to all of those in that area and throughout Northern Ireland who have had the courage to seek election, and urge them not to be deterred from representing their point of view in an elected forum. Thank you, Chair.
Garmagat, Alderman Hussey. All right, so I didn't have any other chair's business, so we're going to move into matters arising from the open minutes of Governance and Strategic Planning Committee held on Tuesday, the 4th of November 2025. Does anybody get any matters arising? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And it was just a thought there, and it's GSP 211/25, which was the deputation that we received from Granulong from the Housing Executive. And I just wanted to mention this week, because this is Homeless Awareness Week, running from the 1st of December right through to the 7th. And there are some wonderful events on in the city to highlight homelessness and make people aware of a lot of the work that is going on. The theme of this year's Homeless Awareness Week is See the Person. So it's about going behind the statistics of homelessness and actually seeing the person in terms of working with compassion and working with dignity, and making sure that we can find the best solutions for individual people and the circumstances that they find themselves in relation to homelessness. I was just hoping that maybe one of the things that we could ask from the committee, because we've talked about it many, many times, was around complex lives and how that is working in Belfast around tackling homelessness. We have lots of good work going on here in the city. There's lots of collaboration. There's a huge continuum of support that is going into the sector here. but we have heard recently about how that complex lives could be lifted and maybe moulded to something that would suit us here in the city and district. And I know we have specific issues around the city centre, and we've been working on those, and particularly around the vulnerability of people there. So if we could maybe get a presentation to committee in relation to complex lives, and we could look at how that might be implemented here to ensure that we're treating every single person who is facing homelessness with the compassion and dignity that they need and deserve. Thank you, Chair.
Garmagat, Councillor Duffy, and if members are all content with that, then we'll propose that we bring them in as a deputation. Yeah. Garmagat, Councillor Duffy, and Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. And it's, I have two items. One is, the first one is 207/25. And I think we had a very useful deputation here by Professor John Doyle on the public finances of United Ireland. And I think it was very clarifying. And people may have been aware that Paul Gosling allowed everybody, well, all of us who were here got a copy of his book, a 10-year plan for a new Ireland. And I know he's very eager to do a deputation to the council. So maybe this is something that the working group can consider. I'm not sure when the next meeting is, but I think that, you know, I wouldn't necessarily agree with Paul on a lot or many things, but I know that there's a lot of useful arguments and information inside his book, and I know there's been a 5-year review of it as well. And it's also published by a local publisher, so I think that there's a lot of reasons to have him in to give a presentation on his perspective on this that would be helpful for the committee and for the working group.
Garmagat, Councillor Harkin, Councillor Jackins, do you want to come in on this one? Yeah.
On this, I would agree with Councillor Harkin. I haven't had the opportunity to read Paul's book yet, but I know that he's a very well respected economist that is looking into what constitutional change will mean. And there's more and more of those conversations happening on a daily basis. I don't feel, given the severity of partition and what it's meant to the local economy here, and the impact that it has had on the people of our city and district, I think it is important that we have these conversations, we have deputations, we inform ourselves, we inform the general public around what opportunities may present themselves over the more immediate future. So I don't feel that it needs to wait until a working group to discuss, and I'm more than happy to propose that an invitation is extended to Paul to present to this committee whenever it can be scheduled on. So happy to make that proposal.
Okay, Councillor Tierney, do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, Chair, just to say that we're happy to support the proposal as well. I said it at full council after Councillor Heaney raised a similar issue. The more voices that we can hear and that we can platform for residents across this district to hear around the future of the island, in my view, the better, and will help inform people and take away some of the concerns that some people might have around what that future may look like. All the better as far as we're concerned. So we're happy to support the proposal from Councillor Jackson. Thank you.
Okay, Garmagat, Councillor Tierney, and Garmagat, Councillor Harkin. If there isn't any issues in the room with that then or online, then we'll go ahead and also request a deputation from Paul Gosling. And on your next point then, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's 212/25. And first of all, I just want to commend everybody that participated in events, protests, marches, rallies over the weekend to mark the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. I want to thank council officers and workers who made sure that the council buildings were lit up on November 29th. And I know that happened because I was in the city centre when the lights went on. So that was very important. I also commend Belfast City Council for flying the Palestinian flag. I know that was contentious, but to say the least. But I think it was very important that we continue to show our solidarity because I think it's reflective of the overriding will of the people across this island. And I wanted to mention, I brought this up at the full council, but there was protests about this across Ireland on Sunday, so I wanted to raise it again. There was a worker at the Tesco, one of the Tesco stores in Newcastle, County Down, and they've been suspended for refusing to handle Israeli products. And there's been 2 days of action now calling for the company to reinstate the worker without punishment, without consequences. I also seen that Mary Malloy, who was one of the Dunnes Stores workers who refused to handle South African goods back in the 80s, has written a letter of support. It's a brilliant letter of support saying this worker is acting on their conscience and shouldn't be punished. And I know workers in dairy have done the same thing and haven't been punished by their companies, which is the right thing to do. I also know that Tesco, when Russia invaded Ukraine, they took all the Russian products off their shelves, which means that they are essentially boycotting Russia for invading the Ukraine. And there's clearly, they're not doing this when it comes to Israel because there's been a long-standing campaign calling on Tesco to remove its products. So, Chair, I would like to propose that we write to Tesco management asking for clarification on why this worker has been suspended. I think that asking for this worker to be reinstated without punishment, but also asking that workers in our district who work for Tesco are not punished for acting on their conscience. I think it's very important that we do everything we can because this can't be allowed to stand. We can't have workers getting fired and suspended or threatened because they're taking a stand in solidarity with Palestine and refusing to support apartheid and genocide. So I've sent a very short proposal to Paula there. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Farrell, do you want to wait until you read the proposal to speak on this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for the proposal. We in the SDLP are happy to support and happy to second. We don't think anyone who has a conscience about what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Palestine, should be punished for exercising a conscience in their place of work. I used to work for Tesco many years ago, so I'm not going to declare an interest, but Tesco stocks literally thousands of products. I would imagine in terms of Israeli products, the percentage is pretty small. So it seems like a very heavy-handed approach from Tesco management. You know, this guy could handle lots and lots of products that aren't from Israel or the occupied territories, and he still able to fulfill his job role. So we think it is heavy-handed. We think the worker should be reinstated. We think he shouldn't be punished or go through any sort of disciplinary procedure, but just think it's wrong. So we're happy to support the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor McGinley.
Mega Chair, and thanks, Sean, for the proposal. We're happy to support it. It is completely wrong that people would be punished for acting on their conscience in the face of a genocide. It's ridiculous from Tesco, to be honest, but we're content to support the proposal and we'll see what comes back from it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGinley. We have Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I won't be supporting the motion from the Derry City and Strabane branch of the Palestinian Authority or the Hamas government in Gaza. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. Chair, I note that as was stated there as well in regards to the issues to do with the flag in Belfast, which have caused a lot of tension in regards and probably damaged community relations, particularly within the city of Belfast. But in relation to the proposal here as well, Chair, it's not up to us to dictate in regards to what Tesco does or doesn't do as an employer. So, as I say, I would be minded that we won't be supporting the proposal as it stands. Thank you very much, Chair.
Alderman Kerrigan and Alderman Cook.
Chair, for let me in, and Alderman Kerrigan beat me to it. I was just to indicate that we wouldn't be supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, so there are dissenting voices on this proposal. So John's just going to take us through a vote here.
Chair, I'm just checking. There are 12 members present from Governance and Strategic Planning. Is it 2 against and 10 for?
3 against.
3 against.
There's direct statement in the committee.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not a member. Sorry, Chair. I'm just speaking.
It's only Alderman Cook and Alderman Hussey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alderman Cook and Alderman Hussey against and everyone else for. Is that correct? So it's 2 against, 10 for. So the proposal passes.
John. Okay, so is there any other matters arising from the open minutes? No. All right. Okay. So we're moving on now to agenda item Iverahocht, number 8, and we have Alfie taking us through this one.
Thanks, Chair. Members, obviously a very detailed report in front of you, and it's to update you on the recent developments in respect of rate support grant, in particular the outcome of the recent judicial review, as well as the ministerial review into whether the grant remains fit for purpose and the original policy intent remains relevant. The second purpose of the report, members, obviously to consider our next steps in relation to trying to address the cuts that have been applied. So members, you'll be aware from numerous reports in the past, the policy intent is to annually provide financial support to councils whose needs exceed their wealth. Without it, it results in a system where ratepayers in less wealthy and more deprived and rural councils pay a higher percentage of their property values and rates. Section 2.2 table shows that we're the council with the highest allocation at 21.12%. The grant is statutory, however, the quantum is unfortunately not and is required to be considered within the overall budget and priorities of Department for Communities. So as a result of that, members, you'll see in the table in section 4.4, the grant's been reduced from over 20 million back in 2008-9 to a current level of just over 3 million. And that's had a direct rates impact of 4.57% here, which is 7.48% when adjusted for inflation. So members, we've obviously had numerous ongoing engagements with relevant ministers and government over the years, unfortunately to no avail. More recently, we participated as an interested party in the judicial review by Mid-Ulster Council, as well as the independent review of the grant by the minister, and these two processes have now concluded. In relation to the judicial review, you'll probably be aware from previous governance reports, this was taken in foreground grounds. First, irrationality, second, rural needs, third, Section 75, and fourth, failure to consult. The claim succeeded on the grounds of rural needs, but the other grounds were dismissed. The key point being that no relief was provided to the impacted councils. Obviously, a disappointing outcome, members, despite a strong case being presented by Mid Ulster. So in relation to the ministerial review, that was carried out by BCS. Process commenced in April 24. You'll recall at the start of the process, we wrote to the Minister expressing concerns around the scope of the review, mainly in that it didn't give any consideration to the quantum of the grant, nor did it make any reference to the wider rating system in which the grant exists. We invited the Minister and consultants to meet Council as part of that process, and in the absence of securing that, you'll recall we completed a detailed report which we submitted as part of our evidence to the review, and that report was subsequently adopted by NILGA and SOLAS as an 11 council position. All those reports, members, are attached in the appendices for your reference, but you've likely seen them before. So, members, the review has just recently concluded. The report was published on 30th of October. Disappointingly, although not surprisingly, given the scope of the review, it's clear that many of the conclusions and findings are process-focused and internal issues for the department. Positively, the report concludes clearly that the rate support grant is required in an NA context, and that recommendation has been accepted by the department. However, the further recommendation that consideration should be given to developing and agreeing a minimum amount over a multi-year period, that hasn't been accepted by the department. Another positive, and very importantly from the review, members, it highlights a comparison of our system to other jurisdictions in Scotland and Wales in particular. So whilst councils there have very different responsibilities, powers and expenditures, they deliver the majority of their income from central government, and very important, the allocation of that funding uses similar principles to the NI rate support grant, where the funding is allocated based on need, and we're aware of similar allocation methods in other jurisdictions. There's a couple of concerning recommendations in the report. Firstly, it recommends that other funding streams being made available to councils should be mapped and taken into consideration at a regional level and factored into the formula. This would appear to suggest that councils in receipt of higher levels of grant funding towards specific deliverables on behalf of government would be punished through reduced rate support allocations, which is obviously concerning. Secondly, it recommends assessment of the work that is delivered that would not have been delivered without rate support grant, which I believe completely misses the fact that the key impact of the cuts is not work delivered, but higher rates burdens and lower standards of service provision. Finally, members, no regard has been made in the report to the wider rating system in which it exists. So members, in terms of next steps, obviously these are difficult in that we've been engaging with the department for many years in relation to rate support grant cuts through lobbying, judicial review processes, submission of detailed reports, and obviously it still resulted in the grant being cut. Further cuts to the grant and will obviously have rates implications for the upcoming rates process, and this is something that probably looks likely given the UK budget settlement last week. The reality is the quantum of the grant is dependent on budget availability. So members, a lot of thought has gone into the recommendations within the report and trying to plot an effective and meaningful next step. So the recommendation is obviously subject to your input and consideration, has a number of components. So it's recommended that you endorse or continued opposition to the cuts applied to the grant and write to the Minister for Communities setting out the following. 1, reiterating our disappointment at the scope of the review process and its failure to consider the required quantum of the grant. 2, highlighting the significant rates implications that have been absorbed by the impacted councils over the past number of years, which are set out in the report. 3, again, providing a copy of our detailed report highlighting the inequities within the rating system and the proven reality that ratepayers in less wealthy and more deprived and rural councils pay a higher proportion of their property values and rates. 4, seeking assurance that no further cuts will be applied to the grant for the 26-27 financial year, and that's to enable us to discharge our statutory responsibility to strike a robust rate. And finally, seeking immediate engagement with the Minister and wider NI Executive to urgently consider updated policies to ensure funding is provided to councils based on need, in line with that provided in other jurisdictions, and ensure ratepayers in less wealthy and more deprived and rural councils do not continue to pay a higher proportion of their property values and rates. Thank you, Chair.
Sin Alfie, and we have Councillor Farrell first.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Alfie, for the report. It's comprehensive, it's detailed, it's thorough, but ultimately it's quite frustrating and disappointing. We've had this conversation and discussion about the rate support grant for many, many years, and it's really, it's hard to fathom that Stormont has not reacted. We've had the independent review and the rate support grant that basically says there is a need for the rate support grant, but it doesn't insist on any sort of minimum level of rate support grant. We don't see the rationale behind that at all. In terms of the rate support grant, you know, when this grant was first devised in Stormont in 2008, we get £4 million a year. If that was adjusted for inflation this year, we would be entitled to over £7 million. Instead, it's been cut to ribbons, torn to shreds, and we're getting less than £700,000 this year. So the failure of Stormont to protect that grant, to invest in that grant, means that ratepayers right across the city and district are footing the bill. We think that's wrong. We think it's shameful. It needs to be robustly challenged. In terms of the recommendations, we support them all. The key one for us is that there is engagement with the Minister and the wider executive. This isn't an issue that the DUP can resolve themselves. It takes every single executive party to agree that the 7 poorer councils outside the Greater Belfast area need support. So this is for the entire executive, not one single party. It needs to be a priority for the entire executive. So our view is this grant needs to be reinstated. It needs to be adjusted for inflation. And there needs to be something in there to say there needs to be a minimum. Because at the minute, the grant exists, but it's all dependent on budget availability. And that's how it's gone from what should be £7 million a year to £700,000 a year. So we appreciate Alfie's continued efforts in this regard. We don't appreciate, you know, the feedback that's coming from Stormont. Something needs to change and needs to change quickly. And we've had warm words since the re-establishment of the executive about regional balance, that it's going to be a priority. The easiest way to address regional balance, to fix regional balance, is to invest in this rate support grant. So it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Councillor Leonard.
Also like to thank Alfie and the rest of his team who have worked on this very comprehensive report indeed. I just want to refer, if I may, to recommendations 2 and 9. They're in paragraphs 3.13 to 3.15. Do you think there needs to be a separate recommendation on this point in particular, Alfie? Because it is really scary that if we're getting money from some other source is going to be taken off us in any rate support grant. Is there a need to highlight this particular point in a separate recommendation? Thank you.
I'm certainly happy to do that, Councillor Leonard. I've highlighted my concerns with those recommendations, and I'm quite happy to add that to the recommendation if members are content, and highlight that in our letter to the Minister, because they are 2 concerning recommendations, and so happy to do that.
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Alfie and the team for putting this report together. It is very, very detailed, and I think it reflects the will of the council and I think the will right across the board in terms of everybody here. We have made a fight around the rate support grant. We think it is wrong that it has been cut and cut and cut and cut again. I think it means that it's actually increasing regional disparity instead of actually helping to address it. I completely agree, as others have, with the recommendations. I think we need to continue to press the Minister and seek support for our council's position from the wider executive, because I think that will make a difference. It's obvious in the report, and we know this, that people across our district pay disproportionately higher rates, and that's what the rate support grant is there for. It's to try and address that, to make sure people have access to the same services as wealthier councils. So that doesn't happen when the rate support grant gets cut, and that's why I think we have to keep fighting on this. I think we have to try. Who knows what this minister is planning to do? I mean, I know that this is protected on a statutory basis. Is he going to try and have legislation to get rid of it altogether because he doesn't think regional disparity exists? And we know that the money isn't ring-fenced, so that's why it's been allowed to decrease year in, year out. So, again, thank you to officers and Alfie in particular for putting this together. And I think we have to just keep pushing this as hard as we can.
Okay, Alderman Kerrigan online.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And I do thank Alfie and the team for putting the report together. It is disappointing, as I say, that there's a number of the recommendations which you see through the report which are accepted, but obviously the bottom one in regards to the actual money is the one that there's not that additional funding. And I do concur actually with the comments there from Councillor Farrell, and it's not often that I agree with Councillor Farrell, but I do in relation to it's not a sole decision there in regards to the DFC minister. It is an executive decision, but again, we have continued to labour the point, and I do think that point will just have to continue to labour the point. And I do concur with the recommendations, and I do as well. Councillor Leonard beat me to it in relation to that. Just calling a spade, Alfie. In that view, are you have a feeling then it's really a target in regards to the money which the council has been able to source in relation to the airport? That there seems to be is that an angle that I'm reading from it, that it's if we've been able to get that we could be further penalised. And then I do note there, although just a point of clarification as well, Alfie, we would be getting the largest share of the remaining rate support grant, which is obviously a shadow of its former self. But the biggest impact on actual regional rates would be in Mid-Ulster. Isn't that correct? We would be the second biggest impact, but it would be Mid-Ulster would be the ones that would suffer the largest in regards to the percentage which would impact on their own rates, just as for a point of clarification. But no, I say thank you very much for the work. It's not the decision we wanted, but no, I agree with the course of action. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. So, yep, the airport would be one of the grants that would be taken into consideration. City Deal would also be taken into consideration. Advice services grants, community services grants, all those grants would be taken into consideration. And I think that would have a pretty inevitable impact in that it would see those grants are there to deliver specific services and address specific need on behalf of government, but the inevitable impact of including them within a calculation would be they would see our entitlement to rate support grant reduced, which I said within the report I don't find any sense with it at all. So I think it's really important, as Councillor Leonard has highlighted, that is highlighted within our letter to the Minister in addition to the recommendations that I've made. The other question, Mid-Ulster, yeah, we have the highest entitlement to the grant. I think the reason Mid-Ulster's percentage is higher is because their rates income as a whole is lower, so therefore the bottom part of that formula. But I would still maintain the case pretty strongly that we're the most significantly impacted in terms of quantum. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair, and Fergal has indicated our support for the recommendations. But I just wanted to jump on and again commend Alfie for the work that he had done on it, and it does make sense as a council that relied on the rate support grant, and I used the word relied deliberately because it is diminished to such an extent where we can no longer rely on it. It doesn't serve the need to support and subsidise our repairs, and it's not an additional money. It's not a bonus. It's a deliberate pot of money, or it's a deliberate investment to ease the burden on our repairs, and that's and they release it, they ease the burden on our repairs and our council. They provide the statutory services that we need to provide. That's it. And Alfie has been very strong on this for a long time. And I know it makes sense for us as a council to be shouting this from the rooftop, but it speaks volumes that all 11 councils endorsed the paper that Alfie put together. And that includes the 4 councils that are not in receipt of the rate support grant, that don't rely on it. That speaks volumes. There's recognition right across the board that the rate support grant is the right thing to do. It is disappointing to see the independent review hasn't grasped the significance of it, because there's certainly some disappointment. There's disappointing elements of it, and it does suggest that there's a potential for us to go back. So there's a question there. I know we engaged in the process with those that were tasked to carry out the independent review. Is there a mechanism, is there an opportunity for us to go back to those who carried out the review, or is our pathway now back through the minister and the wider executive, or is there any opportunity for us to respond to the information we received in October? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I think unfortunately our only way forward is through the minister. The consultants who done the report to the minister, and they based it on the scope of work that they were carried out to do, which we had obviously significant issue with and wrote to the minister on, but that wasn't changed. I think our way forward is to engage with the minister and challenge some of the recommendations within the report, and as well as the recommendations that we have highlighted, to try and move forward. So I would say the consultants' work, they'll say we've done our piece of work and moved on, but
Okay, and online we have Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm basically concurring with all of the remarks that have gone before, but above all, thanks to Alfie for a sterling piece of work. And it's not just a report that's been presented today. This has been going on for some considerable time. I think the RSD allocation that we as a council receive indicates the need in our area. I find it particularly worrying to be the suggestion that because we were successful in CityDeal, because we've been successful in issues like levelling up, airport support, that in some way should be then an impact on what we would receive via rate support grant. Particularly a couple of those which are Westminster orientated funding, and it seems there's a bit of haulback, shall we say, from the executive, or indicated haulback that should be resisted, strongly resisted. The recommendations are there, fully endorse the recommendations, that we take them forward, and to look at the differential from what the total fund was to what it is now. it is scandalous that a government cannot in themselves internally see the need for this type of levelling up, shall we call it, within Northern Ireland across all of the 11 councils. And as I think it was Councillor Jackson pointed out there, support for this sort of action comes not alone from the councils who benefit from its support grant, but from those who don't. They recognise the need to have an equality and equity of assistance to service provision throughout Northern Ireland. So thanks, Alfie, for an excellent report, and fully endorse all of the remarks. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Garmagat, Alderman Hussey, and just Garmagat Alfie for that report and for your continued hard work and campaigning for the rate support grant. Next up, we have Paula on agenda item Iverny, and that's Scam Imrahayocht Hanna Hebra, the Cycle to Work scheme.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek the approval for the continued implementation of the Cycle to Work scheme and to approve an increase in the maximum purchase limit from £1,000 to £1,500 to better meet employees' needs and market pricing. So, the Cycle to Work scheme enables employees to purchase bikes and accessories through salary sacrifice, promoting sustainable travel, physical well-being and reduced commuting costs. Employees using the scheme can purchase bikes directly from Halford's national network or through participating independent bike shops via the Halford's Independent Bike Network. The scheme uses salary sacrifice, which means that employees pay for the bike and associated equipment currently up to £1,000 from their gross salary. This means that an employee has agreed to a reduction in gross salary and receives an amount equivalent to the reduction in bicycles and associated equipment. The proposed increase in the Cycle to Work scheme purchase limit from £1,000 to £1,500 may result in higher upfront costs per participant. However, as the scheme operates through salary sacrifice, there is no direct financial burden to the council. The increase reflects current market pricing for electric and higher spec bicycles, which are essential for longer commutes and accessibility. It's recommended, therefore, that the Cycle to Work, that it's recommended the council approve the continuation of the Cycle to Work scheme for a new cohort of employees, and that the maximum purchase limit is increased from £1,000 to £1,500. Thank you.
Garmagat, Paula, and we have Councillor McGinley.
Good Chair, and just before I go on, I might have to declare an interest, I don't know. My partner works for council and has undertaken the training with Sustrans for the electric bike, so may look at availing of this, he doesn't know yet. So just to be transparent, I think it's a really, really good scheme. I think we should be promoting that amongst staff, particularly as it helps to promote active travel, and we're content to support the recommendations and propose that. Okay.
Garmagat, Councillor McGinley, and Alderman Cook.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and I'm happy to second the proposal as well. I think it's a great scheme. As a fellow cyclist myself, I do cycle from meeting to meeting. It's a great way to travel. Obviously, it's got good health benefits, but and it's been proven that I can beat other colleagues traveling to meeting by cycling. So no, I think it's a great initiative, and as I say, we're happy to second. So thank you.
Garmagat and Councillor Minnick.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Paula for bringing the paper anyway, and we in the SLP fully support it. Just really one question, and just for Paula maybe is there much of an uptake from council officers in this? Thank you.
There is a significant uptake. We open a window once a year, and we do get a great interest, a significant interest in it, yeah.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Chair. Cheers.
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And I think that this is a very good initiative, and I'm very happy to support the recommendations. I am curious how many, if you can tell us, workers took up the offer, because I'm always conscious that I think, you know, cycling to work's a great idea, but I also look at the state of our roads, and I think some people are put off at times about that. But there's a lot of experienced cyclists and maybe others who are committed to find an alternative transport as well. So great initiative. But I would like to know if we increase the amount of money, hopefully that will increase the number of people that are accessing it and utilising it. But it would be good to if we have an idea what our targets are for it as well. Thank you.
In terms of numbers, I would need to just clarify, double check that, but I'm quite happy to get back to you. And then whenever we go out now for this year's, I'll be able to see if there's an increase and let you know.
Okay, and Alderman Hussey?
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one. Where do e-bikes sit within the scheme? Thank you.
Sorry, did you say e-bikes?
That's correct. Where do e-bikes sit within the scheme?
Yes, they're all part of the scheme, and any type of hybrid bike, yes, they all fall within the scheme.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Hussey? You content with that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Clear answer. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any further comments on that one. That's been proposed and seconded. And yeah, Carmen, I'll get Paula. Okay, next up we have the Afbreth New Coog Blaina Erin Scam Co-Ananas with Ellen. That's the Equality Scheme 5-year review.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, the purpose of this report is to update members on the 5-year review of the Council's Equality Scheme and to seek approval for the updated scheme, which was attached as Appendix 1. As set out in the background, we're obliged to review our equality scheme every 5 years. And as also indicated, this will be the third scheme that we've been taken forward. The most recent review was done in 2020. Again, as the report highlights, we sort of deferred through this committee, bringing this forward until we had the outcome of the Equality Commission investigation and also some information in relation to the recent judgment for Women in Scotland Limited versus the Scottish ministers. However, as I say, at this point in time, we have now received the Equality Commission advice, and we're not expecting final advice from the Equality Commission in relation to the, as I say, the Scottish Minister's case until the spring of 2026. Consequently, we've undertaken our 5-year review and prepared the associated report, which we'll share with the Equality Commission. And based on that review, consultation with our stakeholders regarding transgender manifesto and the outcome of the investigation. We're not proposing any substantive changes to the equality scheme, but we've made a number of administrative updates. But we will, however, as I say, be taking forward an update to the Equality Action Plan at a later date. In terms of the recommendations, therefore, in front of members today, subject to your comments, we seek approval for the updated equality scheme as set out in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Carmen, Ellen, and I think coming from myself, I feel that we are a really strong council area when it comes to equality, especially with all the training and awareness courses that ourselves are, asked to attend. So from my point of view, I really do thank you for the work that's going on there and for the continued awareness on equality. Is there any other comments on that, Councillor Minnie?
Just following up, Ellen, on that, on the basis of the Women in Scotland decision that was obviously delivered in April this year. Obviously, it was a seminal judgment and controversial judgment, but also it was a lengthy document as well. But given that the Equality Commission has said that they're not going to be ready to provide any guidance on a substantive basis until spring this year, I mean, that's only 12 months post. Did they give any reasons why or when it would be coming? Is it because of the complexity of the judgment or things like that there? Because I know obviously for council, I suppose it would be it'll be preferential for council to obviously wait for that advice because of the sensitivities involved, and not just looking to the judgment and imparting our own advices. We probably need to wait on that, given the sensitivities of the issues. But it's really like we have to wait for a year before the advice drops down from the Quality Commission, and given that obviously the judgment's there since April, it seems to be quite a long time. But have they given any ideas of why the length? Thank you.
And thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. I mean, I do think it's the complexity of the issue. They're seeking specialist legal advice on it. They have issued interim advice, which we're taking on board, particularly in context of any facilities. But essentially, in terms of the equality scheme, we think that the substantive difference will be the definition of gender, which is included as an appendix to the scheme itself. And we've taken the view that if that advice does change, we will bring forward a further review to members rather than let the scheme go out of date. Thank you.
Just one follow-up here. Thank you, Chair. The interim advice or guidance, was that substantive in itself, or was it short, or was it, did it give you any guidance at all in this issue? I'm sorry for labouring the point.
No, not a problem. It's certainly available on the Commission's website. It was relatively brief. It was, sort of gauged in terms of where practical. But one of the key substantive issues there was where practical, have universal facilities as opposed to single gender facilities. Again, in terms of practicalities, that's difficult to advance in some cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so members have this paper in front of you with a recommendation. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for it, Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, thank you, Ellen, for the report. And I suppose that the LGBTQ working group, it was discussed, and there was actually a special meeting in relation to it because of the complexity and the sensitivity around it. And it was felt at this point that there should be no change. So I'm happy to propose at this point. Thank you.
And Councillor Miller, you're happy to second that? Okay, Councillor Harkin?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in particular on the Trans Manifesto, I'm happy to very much endorse and second that. I think we had a very good discussion at the LGBTQ plus working group. And I think for a lot of reasons right now, it's important that this council do everything it can to stand in solidarity with trans people who I believe are being hammered, demonised and victimised, with transphobic decisions being made at Stormont. And lots of vitriol coming from the mainstream press, particularly newspapers like the Daily Mail. And it was very, very, Catherine Connolly put out a very great statement in solidarity with trans people over the International Day of Remembrance for trans people who've been murdered across the world. And nearly 300 people, trans people, were murdered that we know about over the last year. There was a very somber vigil held at the Rainbow Project's new premises, supported by other organisations. And people are very, very worried right now. They feel very exposed in the open. So I think it's important that the council stand by this Trans Manifesto as it was posed and written previously. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Garmayagat, no further comments on that one. Sorry, just checking online there. All right, okay, and we move on to the next report then, and that's Ellen again, and that is the 6th monthly progress report.
Thank you, Chair. And again, the purpose of this report is to seek members' comments and endorsement in relation to the progress against the strategic planning and support units delivery plan for 25-26. As indicated in the background there, the 6th monthly report forms a key part of our corporate planning improvement and performance review framework, and supplements, as I say, our annual report itself and our delivery plans as well. In terms of the key issues, the report presented at Appendix 1 provides an overview of progress against the actions we've identified within, as I say, the delivery plan for the first 6 months of 25-26, i.e. April to September 25. It indicates at the end of September that progress is in line with our expectations, with overall 50% delivery and a number of key activities scheduled for quarters 3 and 4. Ongoing work, as I say, is being taken forward in terms of completing all of the activities and objectives by the end of the year. The recommendations, therefore, in front of members, that subject to your comments, that you endorse that 6-monthly progress report. Thank you, members.
Okay, Gormagat Ellen, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Ellen, for the report, and thank all officer team for the work and the progress on it they did. And there is a wide-ranging, the report details the wide-ranging tasks of the organisation as a whole, but particularly this committee directorate. And I just wanted to sort of focus on one element, but it's a huge element. See the work in relation to City Deal. Like it's the biggest investment coming into this council area ever for a public authority. There's a huge amount of work underway to develop plans, develop projects, and bringing them forward. I know we're seeing the construction at DNA, which is brilliant news. But within this 6-monthly progress report, there is a specific focus on engagement around City Deal. And I just wouldn't mind querying or asking a question around where are we at with the engagement? I know we've done special meetings of council, getting the news out there. There was a bit of a focus going back some time around media engagement and getting the positive news out. This investment has been secured. These are our plans. But in terms of moving forward and continuing that engagement, selling the positive news story, but again, receiving feedback. Where are we at with it? Are we in a position to give a more detailed update at this committee? And if not, could we ask for a report to be brought back specifically on the engagement piece? Thanks, sir.
Thanks. And through you, Chair, members here on the Capital Working Group and/or the City Deal Working Group will have received this afternoon. I think you've received it, yeah. An email with a huge number of papers on in preparation for a meeting next Monday, Councillor Jackson, within which there's a very substantial update on a whole range of projects, one of which is City Deal, and contained within that paper are proposals for ongoing and further stakeholder engagement across significant aspects of the deal. So those are up for discussion in the working group, and they will then come forward into a respective committee or a special council meeting in January. And there will be further detailed papers will follow, particularly and specifically in relation to engagement.
Okay, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I was going to ask a similar question to Councillor Jackson, so I'm glad that is answered, because I know around the OBC stage we had like detailed briefings on every aspect of the key themes within City Deal. So to get a further update would be really, really useful and informative. But aside from that, there's been so much progress and so much activity. We've got DNA started, we've got the Acorn Farm nearly finished, we've got the Daisy Field opened, we've got the cemetery nearly ready to open in the new year.
And I see there is a note on there about Templemore Sports Complex, and that's going to be included in the agenda in Monday's meeting. So it's all really, really positive. But I've got one specific. It was an issue that was discussed at Business and Culture probably in the last year. So there's a line in there in the capital development about install new council boundary signage. I know we had approved designs at B and C, but the latest status update is blank. So could we get an update on exactly what's happening with that? Because it is worthwhile. We approved it at B and C. It'd be great to see new signage when we enter the council area. So any sort of update on that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. A huge amount of information contained within it, and it is really good to see the amount of progress that has been made across so many different elements of our ambitions. I just wanted to pull out specifically our strategic leisure and welcome the progress that is being made across it. It is something that we have talked about for a very, very long time. And it is good to see in terms of the Strabane strategic leisure that the design team has been appointed and that is moving forward. And then for Templemore specifically, because I know that there is a sense out there in the public domain that we need to be keeping the pressure on in relation to that. But to see that the tender has been issued for the appointment of a design team is hugely significant in taking forward that project. And I know when I'm out and about, people do talk to me about Templemore because it is something that in terms of hearts and minds of people here in this city, they really want to see that developed. So it's fantastic to see that progress being made and that it is now out to tender in terms of the design team. Do we have any dates or milestones in relation to when we might know about who has been appointed or what the next steps will be after that? Because that is something that I particularly would be really interested to hear. Thank you.
Just again, through you, Chair, members will be pleased to know that this has advanced considerably, even since this report was published. Could it defer again to next Monday's meeting? There are detailed papers that have been sent out this afternoon. And yeah, we've advanced that considerably, and we'll talk about timeframes at next week's capital and city deal working groups, if that's a sufficient answer.
No, I have the email here with the papers, so I will look forward to reading them now after this meeting.
It's a bedtime reading tonight, Councillor Duffy. And Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and again, thanks for a very extensive report. And it's welcome that the Chief Executive has just highlighted there that there has been progress even since this particular report has been produced. Cross-departmental support, there's no progress reported in this on it. Is there any rationale on that? I'm not sure which councillor it was previous to me mentioned the boundary signage. This has been something that's been sitting for quite some time, and you know, to hear that we're 25% progress this year, but I mean this is going back some time. So how close are we to having boundary signage? It's quite disappointing when you go round Northern Ireland and you see boundary signage erected for other councils but not for ourselves. There are a couple of items there which it mentions aggresso update. Could somebody clarify that to me? What is aggresso update? And a final point on review feedback and monitoring systems to ensure information is available, and that has not commenced. Is there, you know, that's quite important, that information has to be available. So why has nothing commenced on that as present? But as for the rest of them, everything in there is flying, and the vast majority are on target for the current period. Thank you.
Chair, Alfie's going to take the aggressive one. In relation to your first comment, Alderman Hussey, I mean, obviously the boundary signage issue was only cleared relatively recently, as highlighted in the meeting, and we will provide an update on where that's at in terms of implementation. Unfortunately, I don't have it for you today, but we will get that. Alderman Hussey, I'm just not clear on where the other points were raised from, other than the aggresso point, which Alfie will come in on. If you could guide me specifically to where you're referring to, or I can take it offline and come back to you, but I'm not quite clear on which point of action you're referring to.
Page 267, and it's Ellen actually. It's a section in there on Lead Democratic Services Improvement Officer 2.1. There's just comment there that nothing has commenced on review, feedback and monitoring systems to ensure information is available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, maybe Alfie can pick up the first point and then maybe Alan could address the second if possible.
Yep, thank you, Alderman Hussey. Aggressive update refers to the upgrade of our finance system, which we're currently upgrading onto the cloud for the purposes of security, business continuity, and rolling out electronic ordering and procurement processes. So aggressive is our finance system.
Thanks, Alfie.
And through you, Chair, review feedback and monitoring systems to ensure if information is available on impacts and outcomes. This relates to the complaints handling system, and we're anxious to collect data at the moment in terms of the nature and the volume and the turnaround of complaints. What we're trying to do is extract further information in terms of impacts and outcomes, and that certainly hasn't commenced at the minute, but will be taken forward in the third quarter of this year. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, thank you for those clarifications.
Alderman Hussey. Okay, is there any other comments on the floor for that one? Okay, so members, you have the report in front of you. I just need a proposer and seconder for that. Okay, Councillor Mooney proposed and seconded by Councillor Farrell. Ellen for the report. Okay, and we're moving on to the next one, which is you as well, Ellen, for today. Yes. And this is the scheme of allowances for 25-26 updated.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And this report aims to advise members of the Consolidated Councillor Allowances Circular LG 17/2025, which was issued by the Department of Communities on the 20th of October, and then arising out of that to seek approval for an updated scheme of allowances, which is set out at Appendix 2. Again, as I say, that new circular reflects an increase in the previously published maximum rates for basic and special responsibility allowances of 3.2%. And I would note that as per previous correspondence from this council, that the department is seeking an amendment to the relevant legislation to just transfer the responsibility for setting the rates of allowances paid to councillors to the department rather than putting them before members of this council. In terms of the key issues, the draft scheme of allowances has been updated to reflect both the increases to the basic and special responsibility allowances, which are set out, and the 25-26 rates for dependence carers allowance. It also reflects the 2015 subsistence allowances and the 2017 travel allowances. Also that there's no change to the mayor or deputy allowances until members wish to take a change forward. And in terms of, as I say, the financial, legal and other implications of this, all of these determinations are made by the department under the Local Government Finance Act. And then you've got the Local Government Payments Councillors Regulations. The scheme that's being proposed is effective from the 1st of April 25. And it is noted that, it's recommended that subject to members' comments, the updated scheme of allowance as is set at Appendix 2 is adopted. Thank you, members.
Very good. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks to Ellen for the report. And again, it's extremely frustrating, disappointing that we're left in this position where we're asked to be taking a decision on our own remuneration. We've been consistent by saying we don't believe that we should be taking a decision on our own pay. Other sectors, nurses, healthcare workers, education staff, they don't get the opportunity to take decisions on what they're paid. And the same principle, we don't believe that we should be taking a decision on how much we're paid either. It's absurd that we're being asked to vote on a pay increase for ourselves. As a point of principle, we have rejected any offer before. Things are changing now because at least we know that there's a pathway, there's an acknowledgement that councils shouldn't be in this position. Elected members shouldn't be in this position. It should be taken out of their hands. But in the same vein, we're for this year, and hopefully this is the last time that we're going to be, this council will be in this position. In terms of the recommendation, I can say from our perspective, it's not a recommendation that we can support on that point, the principle. But we don't want to be in a position where if others wish, we don't want to be voting down a pay raise if others feel it's appropriate. So on that basis, we will be abstaining from any vote in relation to this, and in the hope and understanding that this issue should be put to bed, and members will never be asked to take a vote of this nature again. Thanks, Chair.
Very good, Councillor Jackson. And online we have Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in. And I do appreciate what Councillor Jackson has stated, because it should not be coming to council. Effectively, this should be set independent. It is set independently, and it's still that difficulty of the wording, as I'm sure Alderman Hussey, who's going to come in after me, will raise. But hopefully that we are getting to the end of this, that we will no longer have to deal with this, and it won't be brought before us in the future. Because it's obviously a difficulty of it, and it's a difficulty of in regards to the review that was taken, the money report in regards to the review of the role of councillors and the responsibility and what is undertaken through the councillors and the allowances there. So as I say, we have been in support of the allowance increase, because to keep in line with other councillors, because for a long time there was that unevenness and disparity amongst the councillors of whatever party it be across the different councils, whereby we were still sitting on a 2019 allowance up until last year, and there was other ones and neighbouring councils and that who had accepted the allowance, and so there was leaving elected representatives who are all meant to be equal, very different than the allowance which they had received for carrying out their councillor responsibilities. But just a wee question there as well in regards for Ellen, and I always laboured this wee point, and I always think when this report comes up, I ask this question I think every year, and it never really goes any further than that. But it states in there, and I can't see where it is, I think it's 3.6, in regards to the approximately 7,000 which is it's left in regard from the Assurance Audit Risk Committee, and I'm just wondering, has this pot built up, or has that been where does that money go every other year? just out of interest, or is there a sizable wee pot that's sitting away there somewhere that has been building there since the council's merged in regards to the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee of £5,000 or £6,000 a year that's built into a wee that Alfie's got hid somewhere here, or has it been consumed in other roles where I just can't recall where it is? And as I say, I'm going to ask my usual question. Is it a notion of me? Was there talk that some additional funding was potentially going to have been put to the length of some of the ones in regards to the planning committee due to sometimes the length of the workload in regards to that, or is that just something that I've made up or continue to make up? Thank you very much, Chair, for listening to my comments.
Falter it, Alderman Kerrigan. And now we have, sorry, do you want to come in on that, Ellen or Alfie, whoever?
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Kerrigan, the saving has been reported as an underspend each year, effectively. So, unfortunately, we haven't been building up a pot. It's just been basically taken on their bottom line at the end of each year. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Kerrigan, are you content with that answer?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Alfie.
Okay, and the next speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. And I empathise with the comments from Councillor Jackson, as indeed Councillor or Alderman Kerrigan has. The comments with regard to the delay in implementing one of the few points that was taken from the review by the Minister. It's been agreed, yes, that issue of taking the matter of the allowance out of the hands of local councils and into the department. That was agreed, and it is disappointing that it's taking so long for the legislation to actually go through at Stormont to allow that to happen. That said, a lot of the rest of the recommendations of the review were not met or not endorsed by the Minister, unfortunately. And that's the only comment I have to make. The recommendation is there, and I'm quite happy to propose the recommendation in front of us. Thank you, Chair.
Garmagat, Alderman Hussey and Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Look, we talked about this a lot in the Chamber over the last several years. There's been a lot of cost of living struggles that people who we represent face, and I think that I don't think councillors or older people are paid well, but I don't want to stand in the way of people getting needed raises, because I know some of our colleagues do need them. But that said, I think there is a matter of principle here, and I know that there is steps to try and resolve the issue or change the issue of councillors or elected reps getting to vote for their own pay. We've just had a situation where care home workers and domiciliary care workers were told they were getting a real living wage, and now they're not getting it, which is very unfair, and that was by an elected representative. We're also in a situation where we have children in schools and their parents are being told there's going to be a 50 pence increase in the price of school meals come January, and we still have subsidised meals if you're in MLA, if you go to Stormont. So there's a real problem here in terms of like one rule for some and another set of rules for everybody else. So on that basis, I'm not going to be supporting the recommendation today. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Harkin, and next up we have Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in, and thank you to Ellen for the report. We have, for a number of years, and I concur with a lot of what Councillor Jackson and others have said around the fact that once again, councillors are being asked to vote on whether they get a pay raise or not. That is something that I thought would have been dealt with before now. Unfortunately, it hasn't, and we have a paper in front of us where we have to make a decision on it. There's a lot in terms of the scheme in there that I can understand and appreciate, particularly around some of the travel allowances and things like that, where people feel that they have to claim. We don't want to vote on our own pay. But we also don't want to stop others who feel that they need or deserve this increase getting it. Therefore, we have come to the very difficult decision that we will not block anybody who feels that they need or deserve that pay raise, and we will reluctantly, very reluctantly, support the proposal before us, because we feel that the cost of living crisis affects everyone, and there may be people on here, and that we will not stand in their way in trying to get that support. Thank you.
Councillor Tierney and Alderman Cook online.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and I'm just coming in to second the proposal as our group leaders already spoke on the matter. Thank you.
Alderman Cook. Okay, so we have a few different reactions here on the floor, John, so if you want to take it to a vote.
Alderman Cook.
For.
Alderman Hussey.
For.
Councillor Duffy.
Abstain.
Councillor Farrell. Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
Abstain.
Councillor Jackson.
Abstain.
Councillor Leonard.
Abstain.
Councillor McGinley.
Abstain.
Councillor Mooney. Councillor Tierney. And Councillor Nealis.
Abstain.
Thank you, members. 1, 2, 3, 6. Chair, I have recorded 5 for, 1 against, 6 abstentions, so the recommendation is carried forward.
John. Okay, so the next agenda items we have are Oscailge Lahai Olish, they're open for information. Do you have anybody who wants to raise any issues from agenda item 13 or 14? No, just check online. Nope. Okay, no problem. And then we have correspondence then from pages 351 to 354. Any comments on? No, and nothing online as well. Okay, Shinwidge, that's us done now. Oh, sorry, Philip wants to come in here.
Members, very briefly, not on the agenda, but you'll be aware, obviously, of the press coverage over the last couple of days of the judicial review involving Belfast City Council. Members, that part of that judicial review has become in relation to the interpretation of the Local Government Act of 2014, and in particular in relation to Colin. The matter appeared before Judge McLaughlin at the High Court on Monday, and he directed that other councils be served with papers in relation to the matter, and it be placed in for review on Friday in case other councils wish to participate in any way in relation to the proceedings. We would be of the view that we should attend on Friday solely in relation to the standing orders issue, and at least leave ourselves open the opportunity of being able to participate either in writing or orally in due course, purely, as I say, in relation to the issue around calling and standing orders and how this council has interpreted them and going forward. So, members, it's just to make you aware of that and indicate that that's how we intend to proceed at the minute, unless members have any particular contrary view in relation to that.
Okay, are we happy enough with that? Yep. Okay, thanks, Philip, for that. Okay, that's us. Away. Thank you very much.